So I'm here today with Sophie. She's been doing the carnivore diet now for around 6 months. She's developed a lot in terms of like her muscle mass and her strength, and she's lost a heap load of fat along the way. So what this discussion will be about is effectively what she's been doing in that time and how her diet has changed since that, and also the non-scale victories we'll be talking about. So roughly, Sophie, how much weight have you lost so far?
So since being carnivore 6 months, I have lost 20 kilos.
Brilliant.
I'm not sure what that is in stones and pounds. I'm not very good at
Probably
converting.
about 3 stone, or maybe I think 45 pounds, something like 44 pounds.
But it's good because it's losing fat but gaining muscle at the same time, which is always a bonus.
Yeah. So what sort of measurements have been using to determine like, your muscle mass and like, strength?
So I've got these scales, Renfro scales, which are kind of body fat, whether they analyze that, if that's the correct terminology. There's quite a few things that they kind of measure, like visceral fat, muscle mass, fat-free, body mass, all that kind of stuff, which is really good. Sadly, I only had that since September, which is annoying that I didn't get it from the start, but hey ho, I can measure it all now.
Yeah. So we've been looking at the data, and essentially she started off at around, I think it was 75 kilograms of fat-free mass.
Mm-hmm.
She's now somewhere around 71, 72 kilos. But the problem with these scales is when you actually lose fat mass, you also lose some water, which is often attributed to sort of count towards the fat-free mass that you have. So what you'll find is someone can get stronger and appear more muscular, but on the bioimpedance scales that we've been using, their muscle mass will appear to have decreased. But when Sophie's looking in the mirror, she's noticing more tone now.
Yeah.
Around her arms, around her midsection, her legs are getting more toned, her calves. So
I'm definitely
yeah,
noticing kind of like the figure, and like you've said, the silhouette is kind of going in, and like you'll go to hug me and you're like, oh no, I'm going to wrap a bit more around. Which is, and it's those kind of little things that the scales don't show. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm still not happy. I've still got a long way to go, but I can now look in the mirror and I'm starting to like myself just that little bit more every day, seeing the improvements from the gym, seeing the improvements from losing the weight. Of course, I go up and down. Do you know what I mean? It's natural. It's hormones and water weight and everything like that. It's all natural. And I'm slowly. I still get annoyed, but I understand the scales, which I think is very important. So I understand why they've gone up or why they haven't got moved at all. So then I know for the next day, I don't need to punish myself. It's nothing like that. It's simple water weight. You drank a lot last night. You had a rubbish night's sleep. Those kind of things that people don't think about when they're losing weight. They just look at the scale and think, oh my God, it's not gone down, but I've been so perfect. And then that's where they give up because they don't see anything. So it has really helped me understand my body, which I think all of us really need to do a lot better. I definitely did.
Yeah, so now you're at the point where you've lost around 20 kilos. How do you feel about that progress? I mean, obviously, there's people out there that have been perhaps doing different diets for 6 months, and they may have lost, sometimes I hear as much as 100 pounds in 6 months. You've lost roughly half that.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about your training, your diet, maybe any extra activity you're doing, and has that made any difference at all? Or is it that you're just adding in a bit of training and the diet is doing the work for you?
What's the expression? Isn't it diet is about 80% of the work and training is like the rest. So if you can crack the diet, training is always a bonus. I think it's good to obviously get into the habit if you want to lose weight to exercise as you can. Obviously, if you can't do much, then do what you can in your capability, as we say. But I think they're going hand in hand with regards to training. I mean, I've improved massively. I did a year of, well, from 2020 to 2021 when I first lost some weight and I was training in the gym. I wasn't doing half the stuff that I was doing now. I was doing pointless cardio, a little bit of weights because that's all I knew how to do. And although yes, I lost weight and I got smaller, my my body composition didn't really change that much as it wasn't as wide. I didn't notice any kind of definition forming anywhere or anything like that. So it kind of felt like I wasted that year in the gym, which is a shame because I was I was enjoying it, and I do love the gym. And I think if you love something, it makes you want to do it more. And I think now that I'm training properly, and I'm working on these different body parts, I'm learning, what all these exercises do for what muscles, and I'm seeing something. And I think it's definitely making it so much better for me to get back in the gym to work the muscles, because I'm starting to see what it's doing while I'm losing the weight, which is great.
Yeah, so when I was devising your plan a long time ago, we've changed it quite a few times since then, but we effectively put you on what would be considered maybe 1,500 labeled food calories. Since that point in time, we have not decreased it at all, really. In some cases, we might have reduced it for a few days here and there. At this point, we've probably increased it, if anything. And what we've noticed is that the calorie concept is absolute nonsense. And it's nonsense myself as well. Our metabolisms, our metabolic rate specifically, is adaptive. And if we try and diet ourselves to a pulp, our body will begin to look like a pulp.
Yeah, and so that's not what we want.
We're trying to keep hold of lean body mass, so metabolically active tissue. The way we're doing that is doing effective training methods and really not trying to dig a big hole in our recovery. So that's what we're thinking about here. One new addition, which some of you might be interested to hear about, is that we've added in a home gym workout regime. So effectively now we have a Smith machine and probably a set of weights, so enough weights for Sophie and I.
Yeah.
That has a cable stack at the rear, so you can do pull downs and low cable pulls, different things like that. It's got a high cable as well. We've got a bench as well, so we can do leg extensions, leg curls, all the fanny around sort of stuff.
Got a pec deck.
Yeah, a pec deck.
Yeah.
So we've got all this generally sort of quite a good variety of exercises, and I see a lot of people online talking about, just do the big three, do your deadlifts, your bench, and your squat. If you're trying to maximize your progression in terms of strength to achieve more muscle mass, and you're training on your own in a home gym, you're not going to be doing that very safely if you're going to be doing these things on your own without a spotter, for example. The way I advocate training is, generally speaking, training to technical muscular failure. Now, Sophie's not going to be able to do that if she's snapping her back, ripping her spine to pieces, snapping her legs in half, using a barbell. A Smith machine for her is more beneficial.
Much
it's safer.
I
was reading a study yesterday, which was well formulated, and effectively they found virtually no difference between a Smith machine for lifts and a barbell. Effectively, a barbell allows you to push more in a certain plane. Now, while it can decrease the use of some stabilizer muscles, you've got to bear in mind we're doing more than one exercise, so we are using a lot of stabilizer muscles anyway.
Yeah.
So don't be too dogmatic about that sort of thing. So what's your current training plan looking like now, Sophie?
So I'm doing a push-pull leg split, where I work on each kind of day. I'm doing a couple of sets for each kind of muscle group. And because obviously it's at home, Litlin can go to bed and I can have, as long as she sleeps, to train, which is fantastic. So I don't need to feel like I'm rushing it. I don't need to try and get a plan that's crammed into 20 minutes just in case. And because it's at home, if I have to split it up, I can split it up. It's not a problem. But yeah, I kind of do roughly between 15 to 20 sets per kind of training day. And obviously that's split up into each muscle group, a couple of each, and then going to as technical muscular failure as I can get, because I'm still learning how to do it.
Yeah, so she made a good point there about 15 to 20 sets. There's going to be people that comment below and say, why are you doing 50 to 20 sets per workout if you only need to do one set to failure? This goes back to the point I mentioned earlier about training safely. Sophie is not going to be training safely doing one set to failure per body part. People have the idea around the minimal effective dose of training, which does make sense. However, if you can acquire the same muscle mass from doing maybe slightly more volume, but maybe very slightly less intensity, for me, it makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
Me, myself, I'm probably doing somewhere between, a rough guess, 10 to 15 sets per workout. Bear in mind, I've come back from spine surgery maybe a month ago. I'm using a lot more variety of exercises because I can't load my spine.
Yeah.
So Sophie has kind of joined me in my sort of workouts, and we'll effectively be periodizing our training up to a point where we're doing the same sort of workout. Obviously, we've just been doing different weights.
Yeah, it's kind of like back to basics. And I think so many people get so hyped up in the gym is to lift the heaviest and push the heaviest and whatever else, but your form is probably not spot on. And as we know, for it to be effective, form needs to be spot on. And I think going back to basics, and especially because it's a new gym, I've never used a Smith machine. I've always worked out in my uncle's home gym and he didn't have one. So I was used to the barbell and kind of old school stuff. So now having a Smith machine, I'm a bit like, is this right? Is this just, constantly checking the form and checking it's right? And I'd rather do a few weeks to a month of no weight on something just to get that form right and then start to add the weight, instead of pushing to be like, well, I want to be able to deadlift 100 kilos by tomorrow, when it's not realistic. And I think it's helped because obviously you're recovering and you can't do a lot of things. I think it's great that we're kind of starting from scratch again, kind of together, and we're still supporting each other and we're still doing our own weights that our body can take. Maybe at the minute I'm slightly stronger, who knows?
Yeah, so the reason I come to this idea about going back to basics, when we talk about that, we mean going back to a point where we effectively start from a beginner's weight and try and maximize muscle recruitment in a safe manner. That means we're doing, very clean sort of movements that focus on muscular contraction. Now, this idea is something I got from someone called Ben Pekulski, who is a IFBB professional bodybuilder. He's very well read in terms of training. Now, his main concept is muscle activation. That's the main thing he talks about when he's trying to coach people. I see a lot of people that train, and even in a given machine exercise where it is an isolated movement, they still cannot activate the muscles they're trying to work, and everything but the muscle they're trying to work is being activated. So what we're doing here is effectively, although we're not putting a maximal load for our muscles, we're teaching the muscles that we are trying to load to become tense and active maximally. And as time goes on, whilst we maintain that standard form, we're then going to add weight to it.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean we're going from maybe a 40 kilo chest press to 80 kilos. We're talking about maybe 2.5 to 5 kilogram increments every few weeks.
Yeah.
So by the time we actually get to the point where we're lifting much heavier, we're then actually training more effectively. So we're getting more out of less effectively. So that's something I want to get across in this video.
And it's a lot less pressure on your body then, isn't it? I think a lot of people, when they're training, they think, oh, well, I've done 40 kilo bench press. Oh, next one's 50. Or next one's this. Whereas actually, the slower you build up to those big numbers, the better it's going to be. And the better you're going to feel when you get to those big numbers, because you're not going to put the strain on your body and you're not going to cause yourself an injury trying to get there.
Yeah. So now, before we wrap this up, let's just touch on the diet aspect of things. We touched on it earlier briefly. So effectively, you're on the same or more energy intake than you were, when you started the diet.
Yeah, I'm actually more. So my macros have increased.
Yeah. So you're, in a way, you could say your energy expenditure has increased. So you become more metabolically active, less insulin resistant.
Yeah.
Things like that have happened. I say less insulin resistant. I'm talking about her fasting blood glucose is lower than what it was before. So she's trending in the right path in terms of getting her health optimized.
Yeah.
Now, what is your diet like currently? Perhaps you'd like to talk a bit about the little diet fad you tried recently.
So we'll start with the fad that I did. So I tried the lion diet. Now I did it for 2 days plus a meal, well, half a meal. And I think because I'm so fat adapted now because of carnivore, my body was able to kind of tolerate that change. Where I simply did water, salt, beef or lamb. My problem is I like variety and I hate water. So having to only drink water, I was forcing myself to drink, which obviously then wasn't enjoyable. And I was just drinking for the sake of it when I probably wasn't thirsty or anything like that. which obviously isn't great. You don't want to fill up on water. And then when it came to me starting my third day and I was having my breakfast, I was just so sick of beef, chewing it. I only stopped it because I was feeling nauseous eating. So I could at least say the line diet's not for me. Like I'm still doing what I need to do on the carnivore, eating my variety of foods. So what I'm having is my breakfast is still Greek yogurt, butter, and protein powder mixed together, and that fills me up for a good 4 or 5 hours. It digests really well for training. I've noticed that I can have it and then train an hour later, and I don't feel like ugh and sluggish and anything like that. Lunchtime, lunch and dinner are kind of then just variations of egg and then different cheeses and different meats, and I kind of mix it up a bit. Depending if like the kids are eating with us, we'll have like a carnivore bolognese together. Otherwise, lunch and dinner tend to just be what I would call like a picky tea, where I would do like different cuts of meat, maybe chicken, maybe bacon, some eggs in different variety, and then some cheese because I can cope quite well with dairy. So I think at the minute my macros are about 180 protein and about 150 fat. I have found that being higher on both, I perform a lot better, I feel a lot better, I recover a lot better, which obviously then in theory my calories have gone up, because we've been playing about with the macros, haven't we? We've increased them gradually, and obviously my calories then increased by 1,000 one day, and I still lost weight, and I did that for 2 days and I still lost body fat. But yeah, we found a nice happy medium, and it's kind of working. So until it puts me in a plateau, I'm probably not going to change my macros unless I feel like I need to, really.
I mentioned earlier about the line diet being a fad. So if you've still sort of managed to stay watching this video and you haven't disliked it, many people do because they get very emotionally attached to different diets and viewpoints. The reason why I say that is because the majority of people that I know that follow the line diet do not continue to follow it after a while. It tends to be an elimination protocol which is short-lived. There'll be people that are doing it long term, completely fine. Jordan and Michaela Peterson. What I see online, and this is from my own point of view, is that people in the line diet Facebook group, for example, not many of them are actually doing the line diet. I can see their plates and they've got beef or lamb, then they've added in some eggs here and there, or some cheese here and there, and effectively it kind of discredits the fact that they're trying to do something when they're not doing it.
It's not then the line diet, is it? It's just carnivore.
There is a proportion of people that should not do the line diet, and the way you're going to know that is when you get severe warning signals when you start, perhaps heart palpitations, which if you're fat adapted wouldn't be a problem usually if you just change your diet a bit, but when you effectively have the same macronutrient intake and you begin to have heart palpitations, cramps, you feel disorientated perhaps, their suggestions that perhaps you're someone that is not genetically adapted to start the line diet. Now people are going to say but all you need is beef, salt and water. The reality is we have not evolved eating only beef, salt and water. In that time of perhaps the last 1,000 years, or perhaps even way further than that, we've added various different foods in. It depends where your ancestral heritage was building up. Effectively depends where you're from. So if you're someone that lived in mountainous regions, you'll be eating food off the mountain. If you're someone that lives near the equator and was, your ancestors lived there, you're going to be eating food from the equator. Now your genes will adapt over a period of generations to subsist on different nutrient intakes, and your genes will ultimately mean you need more or less of certain nutrients. The way that works is that the enzymes that support your different pathways that enable you to deal with different vitamins and minerals effectively will be different. For example, my historical ancestral diet will be different to someone from Asia. It will be very, very different. And even in the past, maybe a few hundred years, we've noticed that our diets are significantly different to what they were back then. So keep this in mind before you automatically dislike this video and take this video completely out of context. So what I'm saying here is backed up by science. There is about 24% chance or indication that you will need more calcium in your diet. That was why I had palpitations. I added it back in and the palpitations stopped. So that's my own experience. I tried the Lined Up for 3 days, for those of you that don't know, and it's rubbish.
Beat me by 1.
I'm the sort of person that would just continue doing it for the sake of doing it, just see what happens. But I got enough warning signals not to carry on. So in my case, it was not healthy or appropriate to continue doing it.
And thankfully, you listened to your body as to what it was telling you, because had you have carried on, you could have caused more harm than good, which obviously nobody wants. We don't want to suffer when we're trying to eat food. It's not worth it. It's not why you eat food, is it? Food is fuel, so why would you suffer?
Brilliant. Yeah, that's all we wanted to discuss today, really. We went through a few different rabbit holes in this video, but I tried to keep my rambling on point. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and it made a bit of sense to you. This is mostly about Sophie, but we can do more of these about Sophie specifically. And if you want that, just put a comment below.
Any questions or anything, just pop it in the comments and we can hopefully do another one.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys.
Take care.